Welcome back, friends, to the Polished Podcast. We hope you're enjoying this conversation I'm having with our guest today, David Silko. But now, let's add a splash of spontaneity and a sprinkle of fun to the show. It's time for Ask Me Anything! So, David, here is how Ask Me Anything works. We are about to uncover the man behind the profession, the quirks behind your expertise. I've received 3 questions from one of our previous podcast guests, and your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to answer these questions to give us a deeper insight into who you are. Are you ready?
I think so. I think this is about the point where I say help, right?
Yeah. How appropriate. You know, people go in with mixed emotions with this segment, but it's very approachable, very easy. I think you can handle it.
Okay.
So it's going to be fantastic. Your questions today were curated by Nadia Dixon. She was a podcast guest back in October, and she is the national director for the Master Program for Women. So she's in the faith and work space doing a lot of good work building up women leaders across the United States. So her first question for you is,
who has been the most impactful mentor in your life?
Wow, that's an easy one, actually. Awesome. I had a leader when I was in my early 30s who really radically changed my leadership and radically changed my career, frankly, saved it. In that she saw the way I was leading and frankly saw the damage I was leaving in my wake, because I led, one, as a workaholic. I was a raging workaholic, but also from a position of power. And I had gotten to a point where I had just about run that string out. One, I couldn't continue to work the hours that I worked. But also I was getting to the point where I was starting to bump into real power. And she invested in me greatly for the next 6 to 9 months and worked with me to change my style and breed a much more collaborative approach and understand that I was rarely, if ever, the smartest person in the room. And really, really taught me to spend more time out and about with other people, getting their opinion rather than giving them my opinion. And she absolutely radically altered my career. And the irony is that after she left the company, she went on to become a pastor. And the second that I heard that, the revelation went off in my head that she had spent 6 to 9 months teaching me Christian leadership principles without ever saying the words.
wow.
And it was pretty amazing. And the timing was perfect. And it's a situation and a lesson for people. Had she told me she was going to teach me Christian leadership principles, at that point, I probably would have dismissed her. But because she did it so beautifully, but also without really throwing it at me, she guided me through it just perfectly. And then I realized what she had done. And frankly, that was a large part of my faith journey as well, without her even realizing it. So I think that's awesome. That's got to be hands down number one.
Yeah, I would say so. That sounds like an incredible mentor you had in your life.
Yeah.
Well, David, Nadia's second question is,
what would you say to your younger self as an emerging leader stepping boldly in the marketplace?
Wow. That's a hard one because honestly, man, as bad as I had screwed stuff up early on, or as bad of a leader as I was early on, it was part of the journey. So I don't know that I would go back, honestly, and look at that and go, wow, I should change that, because I think the lessons that I learned afterward and through this mentor were so impactful because I had done some things really wrong. I think probably the piece, though, that I would answer on that, I would have engaged the Holy Spirit way earlier and allowed, because even early on when I really had learned a lot of that, I relied very heavily on the self. So I took the things that she taught me and I did them, right? Or I tried to do them. It was all my effort. And that led to a lot of change, don't get me wrong, but there was kind of a second awakening, if you will, when I really asked the Holy Spirit to then take me to the next level. So I would have said, hey, if I could have moved that up and earlier had that revelation, even the help prayer, I think that would have been very helpful to know.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I can second that. I could have used more of the Holy Spirit in my earlier career days too. So yeah, definitely not alone in that. And Nadia's final question for you, David, is,
how do you build trust with someone who challenges or resists your leadership?
That goes to the comment I made earlier about earning a seat at the table. I mean, it takes time. You have to spend time with them. You have to engage with them. You have to have conversations with them. You don't just get that because your resume is good, or you don't just get that because you're a Christian, or you don't just get that because you're a mom or a dad. Like, nobody looks at you and says, oh, you're somebody I can trust. You have to earn that trust in all things. And again, people don't like that. People think that because they're who they are, that you should trust them, or you should follow them, or you should do these. I always tried to, recognize that I had to earn a seat at the table, but I also taught my people, I taught my teams, especially the leaders on my team, to say, you know what? I'm the only one who cares what your resume looks like because I just hired you. Right. Nobody else cares about your resume. They only care about what you do when you meet them, and what you do after you meet them, and how you engage with them, and how you engage with their team, and that. So it's really, you earn it. And it's hard to earn. Unfortunately, it's easy to lose. But you can't earn it back once you lose it. But it's hard to earn, but it's work, but it's also worth it.
That's so good, David. Well, I just appreciate you taking on Nadia's questions today for Ask Me Anything. And before we close out this segment, I got a bonus one, because by the time this episode airs, it is November. Thanksgiving's around the corner.
Okay.
And we're talking about gratitude. So I got to know, as this year winds down, what's a highlight from your year that you're grateful for?
I'm grateful to be what I call retired, not retired. So I am retired from the workforce, from getting paid for what I do, but I am extremely grateful to have opportunities like this, to be in the Faith at Work space, to share the things that God spent 40 years training into me, whether it be directly from him or through other people, to encourage people in the Faith at Work space, because it is in my opinion, it's the number one mission field in the world, where we see and have the ability to influence people that no church will ever have the opportunity to influence without our actions, right? And without our engagement with the Holy Spirit in those actions. So I am very appreciative of the fact that I'm not out to pasture. And I would encourage anybody else who is approaching retirement or retired to, if you're on the bench, get off the bench and get back in the game, because you matter and your experiences are very important to those around you, as well as those coming up, those younger folks.
Yeah. No, that's so good, David. A friend of mine here who has an organization called the Purpose Promise, he calls the retirement community the refired community.
There you go.
You're refired for new work. I love that shift in language on that. But yeah, get off the bench because God's got something for you.
Absolutely.
You know? So, well, I really appreciate you sharing more with us, David. And here's the thing, friends, we want you to join the conversation too. Do you have a burning question or a curiosity that you want to pursue, or just a wild wondering about leadership or our guests? Here's your chance to be part of the action. Go to our website at polishnetwork.org to submit your questions today, become a Polish Podcast MVP, and get a mention plus insight into your favorite guests. Send in those questions today.